What is a social faux pas in your culture that is not seen as such in other cultures? Blocking pavements. I don't get it, but foreigners seem to be okay standing around in groups on narrow streets. In the UK the only people who do that are chavs and tourists, both considered unacceptable to locals. I work in a university town and Asian international students are god awful about this. They especially like to crowd around doorways for some reason. Indian. Not walking your guests back to their car and saying goodbye 20 times before having a 30-minute chat about something you already spent the last 4 hours talking about, then saying goodbye in front of the house another 50 times, or until they're about 6 miles from the house, whichever comes later. In Hawaii, it's weird, not exactly rude, but weird, for kids to address adults as MR, Ms, or by their first name. They say auntie or uncle instead. That's also the polite term of address for strangers, and adults say it all the time too. So we say things like auntie you dropped your money, excuse me uncle, where's the post office, or even can you help that auntie over there get her groceries in the car, etc. If it's an older person, we might say tutu, grandpa grandma in Hawaiian. As a kid, I got really confused when I called a friend from the mainland US uncle and he looked offended and said I'm not your uncle. I didn't know uncle auntie were family terms, they were just what you call adults. Didn't figure that out until I was maybe 11 or 12. There are similar terms in a lot of Asian cultures. For example, in Vietnamese someone that's up to 10-15 years older than you is an, or older brother. A woman that's more than 10-15 years older than you is ko, or aunt. I know Singaporean English uses similar terms, probably borrowed from the many Asian cultures around then. Declining food in India. You go to anyone's home, you will be offered some sort of food, and you have to eat it. You really don't have an option. Backwards answer to this question. Wait is something that you never mention in other cultures, but in my country it's sort of normal for people to come up to friends or people they haven't seen in a long time and say you got fat Philippines. I say sort of because most young ones know never to say this, but old people still do. Something about how being fat is a compliment since life is hard and food was scarce in their young days. Chinese people also tend to do that. France, not saying bonjour and au revoir when entering and leaving a place. Talking without saying bonjour first. For instance, when buying something in a shop, saying bonjour, but not leaving your interlocutor enough time to reply with bonjour as well. It's drilled into us from a young age, and most of us don't even realize how conditioned we are by it. Hence this shop employee was so rude with me and I didn't do anything to deserve it stories. I've seen tourists drop crap on the counter and just say I'll take these, while the shopkeeper would repeat bonjour hoping for the other person to get the hint. I studied abroad in France and the first time this weirded me out was when I had to go to a doctor and walking into the waiting room, all of the other patients looked up and said bonjour. That is not done in America. It was so uncomfortable for me. In the UK you're rude if you don't say thank you to the bus driver. My friend from France came over and kept asking why I thanked them. I mean, I get it, they're doing their job, but it's nice to be polite. I once had a really bad bus journey and protested by not thanking the bus driver on the way out. I felt like my body was going to betray me as I walked past the driver, but I had to stand my ground. Singapore. Public seats and tables are reserved with a packet of tissue paper. If you sit on a table that has a packet of tissue on it, people around you will be shocked, and the person who put it there, when he or she returns, will be legit outraged. Singapore is so safe, or used to be, that I've seen people reserve their food court tables with their mobile phones. If it was anywhere else you would be missing food, phone and table. Norway. Talking to strangers. Standing within range of a frisbee to a stranger. Sitting next to a stranger on the bus. Smiling in public, in particular to strangers. All these are cause for a psychiatric evaluation. This only goes when sober, though. If drunk, both you and the stranger, forget all of the above. You are best buddies. Just remember not to sit next to that person on the bus tomorrow, when you are sober again. My experience with Norwegians, and Swedes and Danes, is that they are really reserved on the outside and in front of strangers, but once you get to know them they are some of the kindest people you'll ever meet. Norway. A handshake is alright, but don't be too touchy and intimate. Most Ouijas like their personal space unless we're talking someone we're close friends with. I freaked out when I visited a Mediterranean country for the first time and complete strangers wanted to kiss me several times on each cheek and stuff. Oh, this is the first I've heard of Ouijas and it not being about us Glaswegians. Hadn't even considered it would be used to denote Norwegians. The Netherlands. Not congratulating everyone at a birthday party. You don't just congratulate whoever's birthday is being celebrated, you congratulate everyone. Grannies, neighbors, friends. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same as what you're referring to, but I attended my Dutch girlfriend's graduation party and it was a very strange feeling for everyone to be congratulating me too. In a majority of Latino cultures, shyness equals rudeness, so if you're shy and don't properly greet someone, that is kiss on the cheek, hola senora, insert name, como estas, then you're deemed a rude and mannerless brat. I was painfully shy as a kid and so greeting family members was a very daunting task for me because anything less than the above example would result in my mother scolding me. Quite different from US culture where people are a little more understanding of shyness. Not waving to say thanks to a fellow driver in Britain when they stopped for you to give way to you. Not saying thank you in general is a faux pas in the UK. This surprised me a lot when driving in the UK. It's considered a polite thing to do in the US too, but it probably happens 40% of the time. In the UK, if I pulled behind a parked car to let a line of 5 cars pass, every last one would wave in thanks on the way by. Being on time. Hispanic American. If you're invited to someone's home and get there at the exact time they tell you, they will be surprised and annoyed, unless you're a close friend or younger same generation family. Having international friends, I end up with a hilariously varied number of start times spread out across a few hours to get them all to show up about the same time. In Argentina, we have two big customs which are the mate and asado, which are a social beverage which is drank in a shared cup and grilled meat done with charcoal or wood. In both cases it's really rude to criticize the drink food due to the effort it requires to prepare them. If someone is kind enough to invite you for a meal they've cooked, it's pretty rude to criticize the food, unless it's in a friendly mocking way. I'm not Argentinian and I'd feel pretty pissed off if this happened. Dating culture, I think. Here in Sweden, if you'd ask a stranger to anything more serious than a drink, coffee or walk, they would be terrified. I actually have had to explain this to foreigners, tourists or exchange students, usually, that I match with on Tinder that yes, I enjoy talking to you, but no, I don't want you to take me to dinner. I'm not sure it's an age thing either. I've spoken to my mother's single friends a little bit, all in their early mid-50s, and they too only go for coffee dates. Dinner is a third date thing, if at all. I've only been on like 2 dinner dates in my life and all have been with people I'm already dating. Complimenting objects in people's home in lots of parts of the Mideast should be avoided as they will feel obligated to give it to you. You tell someone they have a lovely vase and 9/10 times they will hand it to you. Sometimes people are genuinely happy to give over an object, but generally it should be avoided. Rather, try complimenting the cooking, tea, drinks, and snacks they're going to be shoving at you anyway. That's a lovely Rolls Royce you have, friend. In China, it is insulting to the host if you finish all the food on your plate. It means that they did not provide enough food. In the US, many people take pride in cleaning their plate. Yet, in the US it seems rude to leave food on your plate, like you're wasting someone else's food by not eating it, since the expectation is that it gets thrown out. Saying the equivalent of please and thank you in Germany. My parents or grandparents absolutely judge a person by this manner and disliked some of my friends because they didn't do it. Bitter, danke, grüß Gott, auf Wiedersehen. If you are a stranger and know these words, you are, maybe not golden, but at least sylvan. Not looking someone in the eyes. Rude in the West, expected in parts of Africa and Asia. I don't know that it's rude per se, but people might think you are lying or are hiding something if you can't look them in the eye. Wave our country's flag, outside of occasions like a football game, or have it on a flagpole outside your house, or on your car. Welcome to Germany. Northern Irish, saying bye about a dozen times on the phone before hanging up. For example, right, bye, hangs up. Till that my mother is from Northern Ireland. Getting S-faced here in Britain is generally an achievement you can brag about, not an embarrassment. OMG, I got trashed the other night, vommed all over the taxi and I have this huge cut on my leg from somewhere. Was a great night. South Korea, judging people, literally for anything, race, looks, weight, WE. It is literally one of the most judgmental country in the world, and I feel so dang ashamed to be Korean because of this crap. Middle East, not putting much food on your plate and or eating less than half of the food on your plate if you're invited to someone's home cooked dinner. The worst part is when you finish your plate, they put more food on the plate no matter how many times you say you are full. It's especially bad when they don't know how to cook. In Canada, if you don't take your shoes off when you come into someone's house, you might as well be spitting on the floor. Pointing with your index finger in public is seen as rude here in Hungary. People usually up nod in the direction they would point at. Greeting people based on proximity as opposed to age order. Example, you walk into a room and there are 6 men sitting on the couches. I live in the United States and Americans will just start at one side and shake hands with everyone until they reach the other side. For Albanians, this is considered disrespectful. You are supposed to go to the oldest man first, then the second oldest and so on, even if that means moving back and forth across the room. Also, if you are one of the people sitting in the room when another guest arrives, it is rude to sit back down before the men older than you sit. This might not apply to all Albanians, but it does apply specifically to Northern Albanians. See, let's hope there is clear differences in their appearances based on age or I'm insulting someone. France here, there are some. Talking about how much you make is not acceptable. Generally, talking about money is considered as boasting. Politeness, bonjour, au revoir, s'il vous plaît. If someone is unexpectedly rude to you, for example a shop employee, it could be a retaliation for your impoliteness. For a lot of people I know, talking loud. Basically, we don't want to know about your life. Keep quiet, damn it. X3. Jewish people are not supposed to have a baby shower, keep baby items in the house, decorate a nursery, etc. It's considered bad luck. In Spain, if someone offers you something you have to decline it a few times until they insist, which makes it really uncomfortable when I really don't want something. I live in Madrid and have never experienced that. Being late. Some cultures are more strict about time, Japan, but some are a lot less formal. Showing up late to a business engagement in the USA is going to get you a talking to by the boss at best. Not tipping will make most people judge you for being worthless scum in America, but in East Asia especially it's considered rude to tip. I think because it implies that your boss doesn't pay you enough, or you're belittling their job, whatever it may be. Your boss doesn't pay you enough. In fairness, this is pretty much the reason we tip in America. Mexican, not shaking or giving a kiss on the cheek to everyone present at a social gathering. You have to greet everyone, even if you don't know them. People tend to think it's rude if you don't. Don't worry, it would only be 9 shires, 11 shires, 2 abuelas and 114 primus before you can eat pozole. Not really a faux pas, but I find it interesting that in the US, younger people address older people as sir or mom out of respect courtesy. We don't do that in the UK outside of customer services. We'll even go a step further and address someone older than us by their nickname. No thank you sir here, just cheers Pete. I feel like that's more of a southern thing. In the north we'll settle for hey, you. UK, it's minor, but pool tables in pubs and bars are reserved by putting a pound coin on the edge of the table. This means you're playing the next game, and whoever is currently playing will stop when their game is finished. If there's already a pound coin on the table, then you're in a queue and you have to wait for the owners of the other coins to play first, in the order they were placed. In my experience at least, it doesn't matter where you are, or how drunk you or the other players happen to be. Everyone obeys these rules, except for the odd W, and remembers the order the coins were placed on the table. I imagine this is done elsewhere, but I've played with Spanish, Polish and Dutch colleagues who all assumed someone had left the bar and forgot their change. We are very good at queuing. Not from my culture, but I made a faux pas when I was in Sri Lanka. I was staying at a hostel and I came back from an outing with some takeout and a couple of random beers. I was sitting in the common room eating and drinking from the can when someone came up to me and had a mini freak out and told me I couldn't drink that beer here. They allowed drinking, so I was confused. They explained to me that the Tamil Tigers were a brutal terrorist organization in Sri Lanka. Guess what was on my beer? A giant tiger. I poured it into a glass and finished my meal. You never ask someone how much money they make. UK. Also, I think some UK people will read this and think, WTF, it's you. You're the weirdos. USA. We had a young lady who came to live with us from Estonia. She was very athletic and attractive. She showed me photos of her graduating class and it appeared athletic and attractive is the norm in that country. So, needless to say, she was shocked at the size of people here in Texas and the crap food we consume. She would unashamedly take cell phone photos of obese people without even trying to hide what she was obviously doing. This was in 2006. She's now married to a fellow Texan and not so fit anymore, but still beautiful. Offering food whatever you eating. Example. You're eating snacks and you see your friend. Hey, you want some barbecue? Hey, I am eating and it will be rude not to invite you and I expect you will refuse. Him. Oh, thanks but I am full. I'm starving but it is rude to get some. In East Africa, Kenya, you shouldn't sit on the curb for any reason as a woman. Waiting, chatting on the phone, etc. Or chug a drink or down food while walking along public city streets. Switzerland. Don't you ever dare to drop your trash in somebody else's trash bin. Even if you know it will be taken to recycling today or there's a lot of free space there. This is precisely equivalent to cutting into the queue in UK, not a big offense here. Or not tipping your waiter in the US. Here the tips are completely optional. Everything is way overpriced anyway. But don't mess with trash. I'm British and lived in the US for like 8 years. Now live back in the UK with my American wife. I have a few things that Americans don't seem to realize they shouldn't do in the UK. 1. Asking people they just met questions that could be interpreted as trying to evaluate their social status. Where did you go to college? Etc. In the UK the done thing is more to ferret out that information discreetly. This doesn't work with the American getting to know you ritual, which is to ask each other personal questions until you find some common point. Oh, you went to Wisconsin, my brother's friend's dog lives in Madison. 2. The main one I see. Not saying please. Americans don't say please when they order things. They think they do, but they don't. American politeness requires thanks and ordering in a generally friendly tone. But in Britain it's considered seriously rude not to say the actual word please after every request. We had some lovely American friends over to stay the other month, but seriously the way they would order, "I'll have the steak," was really quite rude by British standards. 3. British people do this a fair amount too, but asking someone where they are from if they have a foreign accent. To British ears it can scream you sound different and I'm gonna put you on the spot, whereas I think Americans see it as being welcoming and showing an interest. In the US, and I'm not quite sure how to put this, but failing to respond to one-upmanship. So for example, I've been to Antarctica, and I went to Cambridge, both made up. If I meet someone in the US and he starts bragging about his trip to the Arctic, or how he went to Harvard, my first instinct is to sort of clam up. But if my own experience later comes out, this will be seen quite poorly in American terms, like I thought too highly of myself and would rather be stuck up than get into some honest bragging discovering common interests. 3 is an interesting one because depending on the situation, even in the US, asking that can imply interest or xenophobia. The worst case being when someone asks where someone learned English only to learn they were born in the States. Not sure if this counts, but I'm Chinese Asian and most of us will probably live with our parents our entire lives and it's not seen as being dependent. So when I'm around non-Asian people and tell them my living situation, they judge me. I had one person laugh at me because I'll get picked up by my mom after work. It's not seen as a disappointment to be still living with parents and depending on them. It's normal, because eventually I'll be helping my parents when they're old. Poland. Greeting through the doorway, although it appears to be the case for other Slavic countries too. Essentially, when you are having handshakes, it's expected for you both to be on the same side, either in or outside. I read that it comes from pagan times when the house's founder would be buried under the entrance doorway. So back in the day it would be very rude to greet over somebody's grave, and even though nowadays nobody is buried there, we still have this thing. It's not appropriate to spit on the street, sidewalk, etc., especially in front of a woman. I generally think it to be a rude gesture in general. I despise it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.